It has been 12 years since The Legend of Korra ended, and finally, after all this time, the next installment in the Avatar franchise is here. I'm of course talking about Avatar 7 Havens, a new show that is only 3 months away after being bumped up from its initially slated 2027 release, presumably because the Aang movie leaked, so Paramount had to bump that up to a summer release. And not only are they probably trying to avoid this show leaking, but I imagine they're trying to prevent big gaps between Avatar content. The movie is officially kicking off its animated resurgence, and they wanted to feel as if there's a consistent stream of Avatar media coming out. Now, I'm super excited for Seven Havens, but also really worried. Not because I think the show will be bad, although there are some things that make me raise an eyebrow, which we'll talk about, but really my main concern is everything surrounding the show. How Paramount's gonna treat it, as despite really popular misinformation floating around right now, it has not been decided how the show will be released yet, and I'm worried that, in spite of the creator's intentions, this show won't unite the very divisive Avatar community, but instead feed directly into the discourse. Because it really feels like Korra, both the character and show, are having a much stronger impact on the narrative of Seven Havens than Aang and Avatar The Last Airbender had on Korra's story. And of course, there's other aspects of this show that's already controversial, like the art and animation. So let's talk about it, starting with the story itself. On paper, this seems to be on par with what people expected the third Avatar show to be, twin Earth avatars. As of right now, our main protagonist, Pavi, appears to be the only one who's confirmed to be the Avatar. But as many people are pointing out, there appears to be some Rava and Vatu shenanigans going on, from Pavi and Nisha having diamond-shaped pupils, to the imagery that's very reminiscent of Vatu. It seems as if when Korra perished and the Avatar reincarnated, Rava and Vatu split apart, and the result is 2 avatars. That's clearly going to be a twist in the first season. I don't know if it'll be the twist, but the synopsis even mentions that the 2 twins have to uncover their mysterious origins. What would be mysterious about their origins if not that they have Rava and Vatu in them? With Pavi, interestingly enough, likely being connected to Vatu. And I'm not just saying this because of the trailer, but because that just seems like a very Avatar thing to happen. Something that, with the right exploration, could end up being a really compelling twist, turning a surface level, oh, you were born with the bad demon story, into something a little more nuanced. Light and Darkness, Kingdom Hearts, themes and such. And just so we're clear, Michael DiMartino stated himself on the Avatar Wiki way back in 2014 that Vatu has receded within Rava, and that he is technically within Korra, but his presence never affected Korra because he was just so weak at that point, he couldn't do anything. And sure enough, he ends this statement with, check back with whoever's the Avatar in another 10,000 years, and I'm sure Vatu will be giving them trouble. Which affirms to me that, no matter what, the next Avatar series was always going to feature Rava and Vatu in some capacity. I think a lot of fans were expecting that, yet what makes me kind of nervous about this is the other side to Seven Haven's story. Korra and the apocalypse. Prior to Pavi's birth, calamity struck the world. Judging by the purple tornadoes of lightning and the massive waves that's about to decimate a city, I'm assuming this was a supernatural disaster that serves as the unexpected yet ultimate consequence of Korra keeping the spirit portals open all those years ago. There's not too many details of this event, but it seemed to have forced Korra to save what she could of the world, splitting it into 7 havens. And now she's remembered as humanity's destroyer instead of savior. The world does not remember her fondly, and thus, Pavi's in trouble as the next Avatar, likely having to keep her identity a secret. Now, I think anyone can figure out that by the end of book 1, or maybe even book 2, we're gonna learn what really happened, and that Korra did not do any of this out of malicious intent, nor did she fail humanity, but instead ensured the best outcome possible, which is the world that Pavi grows up in. But already you have Korra haters feeling like they won the lottery, and her fans questioning why Mike and Brian hate her so much when I feel like the opposite is true. They love Korra, both the character and the show, and I don't think the way either has been perceived over the years has been sitting right with them. And that's why I'm worried of how Korra-centric Seven Haven seems to be. We knew Korra would play a role in the next Avatar show because she's the only Avatar Pavi's going to be connected to, at least at the start of the series. But having this setup of, oh, the whole world hates Korra, and her legacy is making people wary of the next Avatar, feels like the most on-the-nose meta-commentary we've gotten out of this franchise. And it's no secret that Book 2 of Korra is by far the most criticized and disliked. So right now, I can't help but to get the vibe that Mike and Brian are hell-bent on redeeming Book 2 of Korra and win over everyone who's not a fan of Korra. And I'm just afraid that'll be at the expense of the Seven Havens cast. That Pavi and Nisha's arcs will be driven by this meta-commentary, ironically forcing them to live in Korra's shadow, and everyone else's arcs will be there, but but their presence won't be felt as strongly as the Korra mystery. Now, I'm gonna have faith that they'll be able to balance everything out, but right now, it really does feel like meta commentary, and the most controversial season out of the entire Avatar franchise is informing what's supposed to be a fresh start for the franchise. Obviously, you want those ties to the previous series. You want viewers who grew up with Aang and Korra to keep following along, to stay invested, but I'm truly worried they might be going about it the wrong way. But hopefully things will shake out where Book 1 ends up being a transition between Korra and Seven Havens, and then the rest of the series gets to do its own thing. The next topic of concern is the art and animation, and I guess world building because we're also going to talk about the character designs. A lot of people really aren't vibing with the art style and character design of the series. It's obviously a lot different from Korra, with everyone saying that it looks more like Netflix Voltron than Avatar, which makes complete sense. Seven Havens seems to have more simplified designs, and Voltron's art style definitely feels like a simplified take on Korra. It's kind of why I gave the show a shot back in the day. There's also little differences that weren't present in other Avatar series. The shape of the eyes are different, and it kind of looks like the eyes take up more space in the face than before. And certain aspects of the character design, like the shape of their hair, is a bit more angular. But I think what's also throwing people off are the outfits and color palettes of the characters. The common colors for Earth Kingdom attire tend to be greens and yellows, though if you're associated with flowers, you'll get a dash of pink. It even tends to replace the green and yellow. But Pavi's outfit has more of this orangish pink than anything, with very little yellow, with most of the green being in her cloak and pants. Not to mention the clothes themselves just feel different from anything we've seen out of the Earth Kingdom, and thus different from Avatar. But I think that's kind of the point. The Legend of Korra saw the world evolve in many ways, not just in the technology and architecture, but the fashion. So it makes sense that Seven Havens would continue to evolve that fashion based off the trajectory Korra set up, and in return, it's getting even farther from The Last Airbender. But I do think because of the more simplified designs, we're losing out on some details and accessories that are present in the other two Avatar series that would have made it feel a bit more cohesive. But I'm gonna be real, I think the character that's really giving Voltron and really drives home the importance of color palettes is Jay. He's an airbender, and apparently in a world where air nomads had quite some time to repopulate, their attire, or at least the apparel that Jay is wearing, seems to have evolved from the wingsuits in Korra. But unlike The Last Airbender in Korra, where the air nomads colors were a healthy balance of red and yellow, with the wingsuits adding some gray into the mix, Jay's outfit appears to be primarily yellow, with a whole lot of gray and splashes of red, plus the addition of blue, including his ponytail band. So while you can tell that yes, this is an evolution of the air nomads, it's gotten too much away from that iconic red. And I think his outfit, presumably intended to be aerodynamic, along with the utility belt and blue emblem on his chest, does make Jay seem more like a sci-fi character and thus someone who would fit right in over at Voltron, as opposed to an Avatar character. Well, I feel like we're gonna look back on the franchise and think, yeah, Korra was definitely the best looking show. I think we just need to see more characters and learn more about this world before we make a definitive decision about the art direction. It's okay if you're not vibing with it now, but we really haven't seen that many characters, nor do we have a proper understanding of how the world evolved before its collapse, and if that collapse had affected the world in any way that would inform the character designs. And then there's the animation itself, which I don't really want to harp on because I really do think for the most part, it's the same deal as Phineas and Ferb and King of the Hill. Not only do we have a different animation studio from the likes of The Last Airbender and Korra, this time being held by a French studio, the one that actually animated Disney's new show Dragon Strikers, but The Last Airbender and Korra were cartoons that were animated on paper and then colored digitally. Seven Havens, like most new cartoons, it's animated digitally from start to finish. Still hand-drawn frame by frame, but as we see with shows like Phineas and Ferb and King of the Hill, being completely digital means that more shortcuts can be taken, especially in departments like cleanup, where no fault of the cleanup artist because y'all be on a crunch. It might be easier to just drag a body part or squash a character, as opposed to drawing an entirely new frame. While digital line art can replicate the same look as physical pencil-drawn line art, I feel like Western shows usually go with something where our brains can register that smoother, vectorish line art most productions use. And since we have two shows with the traditional approach in the memory bank, it's easy to compare and tell that something's changed. However, a lot of people are saying things like, what happened to the frame rate? And as evident with Dragon Strikers, a show that looks incredible, this is just a stylistic choice. You're not asking for a better frame rate, you're asking for more in-between frames. But the animation studio behind Seven Havens seems to like using limited animation, being resourceful during lower priority moments, so that they have more time to really let the action scenes cook, and giving those all the in-betweens and sakuga you could want. Alternating between animating on 2s and 3s, a technique that can be cost-effective, but also pull off some really cool tricks, like conveying stronger weight and impact of certain actions. Yeah, we could have gone with a studio that animates everything on twos like a standard animated production, but then you risk there being no sense of weight or impact. That's just their style. I understand if you're not rocking with it, but I'm kinda confused on why people are saying this looks bad. Could you argue it's a downgrade? Sure. But this, alongside other negativity that I've seen, really feels like one of those cases where Avatar fans forget that it's another Western cartoon, another Nickelodeon cartoon, which means they don't have a frame of reference for how things usually look or how things usually operate. Even if there is less money going into this thing than previous Avatar shows, it's clearly a lot more expensive than the average Western cartoon in the 2020s. And it blows a lot of other 2D Nickelodeon shows out the water. People are complaining that we only got a trailer 3 months out, but like, in the modern animation industry, anything earlier than a 2 weeks heads up is a godsend, let alone 3 months. And that brings me to something else. The release schedule. I don't know how, but someone at Paramount screwed up and told Variety that all 26 episodes would be dropping all at once in October, which would be crazy. 2 whole books? All at once? But sure enough, this is not the case. And Variety updated their article to inform people that yeah, the 26 episode drop is not what's happening. They're still figuring it out, which is kinda concerning, but with how they're seeing this backlash, I doubt they're even entertaining the notion of dropping it all at once. Paramount Plus as a service is no stranger to weekly releases, and it's Avatar, a show where most fans are gonna want weekly releases. Maybe they'll find a middle ground for the weekly viewers and binge watchers, dropping episodes in batches until the season's finished, like 4 episodes for the premiere, and then 3 episodes a week until it's done. But as far as I'm seeing, a lot of these media accounts like Discussing Film, Toon Hive, and Culture Crave have not followed up with any of their tweets specifying the 26 episode rollout, with a clarification that this is no longer the case, so people are still seeing these tweets and getting mad at a predicament that doesn't actually exist. There are people saying, oh my god, Seven Haven's gonna get screwed over and canceled, as if they didn't announce that another TV show was already in the works over at Avatar Studios, which to me communicates, don't worry about Seven Havens, that's going to have its story told, and we're already focusing on what's next. Yes, Paramount handled the movie horribly. I called it leaking. I've been really critical of them and how they've treated Avatar, and I know the new fighting game is apparently having issues with launch on Xbox and Switch, and people are looking at that as Paramount sabotaging Avatar when, while I could see the release date getting moved up to accompany the new streaming date for the movie, I think the issues we've been hearing about ultimately comes down to the fact that licensed games based off of cartoons really don't get the resources they deserve. Nickelodeon games being a great example of this. I mean, look at All-Star Brawl 1 versus 2, and because that's affecting the rollout of the game at a time where Paramount is already on people's shit list, it's getting lumped into this narrative that Paramount hates Avatar, and it's turning into something that it really doesn't need to be. At the end of the day, I think we all just need to calm down a little bit and keep an open mind as we head into this new series. It's clear that the plan is for every Avatar show to be unique, to really stand out from the last, in both art direction and the world in which the project is set in. I know people are really attached to The Last Airbender world, and each series straying away from how the world was in that show has left a bad taste in their mouths, but I think we should be open to the possibility that Mike and Brian have strong ideas for where they want to take this universe, and the different kinds of setups and conflicts you can drop benders in. I do agree that it feels like they're shifting away from its cultural influences, introducing the Avatarian language, which could be cool, but feels pretty lame and disrespectful. Yet there's still just so much we don't know and haven't seen from the new world or the new series that the amount of people already assuming the franchise is cooked for one reason or another has just become really exhausting, and I hope that when this series comes out, people will find themselves pleasantly surprised. But honestly, I think a lot of older viewers are going to be underwhelmed because Pavi being a kid protagonist indicates to me that they want to return to younger audiences after Korra got pretty heavy. I wouldn't mind alternating between an Avatar show that's more for kids or general audiences and shows that are a lot more mature and targeting older audiences. But again, we just gotta see things play out, who knows. By the end game, Seven Havens may be the darkest Avatar story we ever got. We'll just have to wait and see. But as always, these are just my thoughts and I want to hear yours. Where's your head at with Seven Havens? Do you think it's gonna be a flop? Let us know in the comments down below and keep the conversation going over on Twitter and Instagram by giving me a follow at Fox and at Roundtable Vids. If you enjoyed this video, please sort a like and subscribe to the Roundtable with notifications on so you never miss a video. Thank you for watching and I hope you have an awesome day. Peace!
What we do here is go back.
Need something to throw on while you draw, study, or sleep? Roundtable Rewind's got you covered. So why not take a stroll down memory lane and subscribe?
No one can tell me what to do.
See you there.